Fireworks upon fireworks upon fireworks. New Year celebration in the months of January. Tradition, tradition, tradition. But the question is January really the first month of the new year? This is what we're actually going to get into discussing right now. So, let's begin. In the Old Testament, when God commanded the Israelites to leave Egypt, He gave them a month, which would be known as the beginning of months for them in Exodus 12:2. And yes, He actually did. And it says, "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." And maybe if you are wondering what month might that be, it is called Abib, Abib. And this month is further referenced in Exodus 13:3-4, where it says, "Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt. This day come ye out in the month Abib." The reason for this? See, God commanded his people to observe the Passover on the first month of the year, Abib or Nisan, which is equivalent to March or April. And if noticed here, the new year begins within the springtime, when everything is a new beginning, when it blossoms, and when it is bearing. And this Abib also means springtime. So it would only make sense that God in the first month would make something new, blossoming. Yet, now we celebrate it in the dead of winter, January. That was changed due to the powers of Rome. And this is what we're going to get into right now. So, January. January is actually named by the Greek god Janus. Janus looks back at the past and looks forward into the future simultaneously. Janus is often involved together with Jupiter and is considered a fairly high ranking god in the Roman pantheon. Janus is referenced to as the god of doors, gates, beginnings, transitions, and also duality. This strings from many pagan sun worshipping, especially from Constantine and Gregory, because we now follow what else? The Gregorian calendar, which is our next point. The Gregorian calendar that we now currently use was founded by Pope Gregory of the Roman Catholic Church. There's many different calendars that was evolved around the time of Constantine and Gregory. And if you notice, these months only had 10. They only had 10 months, which started in when? March, similarly to the calendar that God gave. But then later on, these calendars decided to take a turn where they added January and February. And you could also look into this as well. And then it became no longer the beginning of the month started in March, but now it started in January in the dead of winter. Hmm. So we see the New Year's Day actually begins on the first new moon in springtime. But the Romans, who were sun worshippers, instituted their own calendar, which is solar. It has nothing to do with the original calendar that God gave. Everything was tilted down and shifted on its head. All right. So now we see that God's month, first month, is actually within the springtime, March, April, and is not really and truly January. We're starting to see that more and more. All right. So now here's an interesting fact on this. You realize that April Fools, which is around the correct time of God's calendar, came about because people who celebrated the New Year's on January 1st made a mockery of those who celebrated it on a different day. So now we're starting to see that the celebration of God's actual day is becoming mocked and is becoming belittled. And it's now becoming more and more secular and more traditional that January 1st is the first of the 11th month in the calendar which God gave, January. And if you have time, you could go look at the calendar that God instituted to the Jews and obviously the ones that the early Christian paid attention to. Now, many have claimed and said that these are only Jewish calendars, quote unquote, and days and months and so forth. But here we see that God is the one who instituted his months, days, his feasts, and many more. He has his own outline, and we are to follow it as Christians. And also, if we're to be grafted into being a new Israelite, a new Jew, we obviously follow the outline that he gave, the physical, because we're now spiritual Jews when we accept Christ. It is not a man made, quote what many people say, but it is actually a God made calendar.